Hello and welcome to your Peace of Mind podcast for the Actuaries Institute Australia. I'm Elaine Grace. Insurance is part of the economic infrastructure of our society. It tries to give people peace of mind to protect them from life's uncertainties. But is it helping people who suffer mental health problems? We at the Actuaries Institute think there are improvements to be made. That's why we've released a green paper on this topic and produced this podcast series. In this first episode, we'll explore the complex question, how can better insurance options be provided to customers with mental health conditions? Today, we have Jeff Atkins, Principal Affinity and co-author of the green paper, in the studio to talk with us about these challenges. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Elaine.
So 1 in 5 Australians will be affected by a mental health condition in any 12-month period, most commonly anxiety and depression. What changes have we seen in the way society deals with mental illness?
I think it'd be fair to say it's one of the mega trends of society, not only in Australia, last few decades. 30 years ago, it was very unusual to see an insurance claim from a mental health disorder. You'd see an occasional schizophrenia or serious bipolar. And of course, over that time, we've invested a lot as a society in trying to recognise, support, reduce stigma. We've got support and advocacy organisations like Beyond Blue become very prominent. Lots of research in some of our great universities and the Black Dog Institute. We've got a mental health commission created by the national government. One of the small symbolic initiatives that I think highly of is giving GPs under Medicare the ability to provide a mental health plan, just as they can provide a prescription for drugs. So there's been an awful lot done and an awful lot still happening.
Mm-hmm. So it's great to see this increased awareness, people actually getting the treatment that they need. What about insurance? Can you tell me a little bit about insurance products out there and how they respond to mental health?
Well, broadly speaking, as you said in the intro, insurance is to support people in times of need when something bad's happened. If the something bad happens to be a mental disorder or involves a mental condition in some way, the insurance companies and products just have been struggling to make a good response. So we've got life insurance that covers people if they die. In that whole area, there's a lot of disability insurance, including in superannuation, where the whole purpose is to be able to provide income while you're not able to work. So a lot of people not able to work because of a mental health condition, and so it comes up very frequently. In workers' compensation, there are people, anybody who's suffered a mental injury at work can be entitled to workers' compensation. In motor accidents, we see a surprisingly large number of people who've been injured in a motor accident who end up with a mental health condition. So it's everywhere that you're insuring people in one way or another. Travel insurance has been very topical. Private health insurance. So all of the different aspects of insurance that cover people rather than things.
Mm-hmm. So it really touches all of the insurance products, it seems.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. One of those challenges that insurers face is the subjectivity and variability around diagnosis. Dr. Derek Lovell is a psychiatrist who consults widely to the insurance industry. Let's hear from Dr. Lovell now on the challenge of diagnosing mental illness.
We don't have any tests. That's the difficulty. It's impossible. We haven't got a blood test. We haven't got an X-ray we can look at. We're reliant on people's account, and moral hazard sometimes comes into it. People's illness behaviours come into it. But depression essentially is an endpoint, and it's a biopsychosocial condition. It's a complex interplay between an individual's makeup, and obviously there's a genetic component. I mean, if you have a depressed relative, your risk of depression goes up to 16.8% as opposed to 5.8%.
Psychiatrist Dr. Derek Lovell there. Jeff, what's your take on that? How does that make it hard for insurers?
It's great to listen to people who are actually professionals in this field in dealing with relevant people. I've learned an awful lot, and that's one of the first things that I learned about the difficulty of diagnosis. I've read the the doctor's Bible. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And honestly, being able to distinguish the difference between one sort of condition or another and what's a subclinical complaint versus what becomes a mental health disorder, very, very difficult. It comes with the territory. Now, if you're an insurance company, I think most people accept that an insurance company does need to make a rational, objective, fact-based decision. Insurance companies can't pay anybody that comes up and asks for a claim. They need to make an assessment. So in that subjective situation, what information does the insurance company use and how can they rely on the information? So that just makes it a very difficult situation to start with. If you think about what's involved with assessing a claim for a mental health condition, at the moment, the insurance claim often comes right at the end of a very long period and process of a person dealing with their condition and the difficulties that they're having. The only way to make a diagnosis of a mental health condition is to talk to the person and listen to them and question them and evaluate what they say.
Sure.
So you've got this total reliance on what the person themselves say, virtually impossible to get any verification. Sometimes evidence can be gathered from a family member. Many family members are not particularly unbiased or objective in responding in these situations. In hard-fought claims, it's not at all uncommon for a person to have had 10 or more different medical assessments.
That can't be easy.
You think about someone struggling with a mental health condition, and they say it frequently, one of the worst things is having to tell my story over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I get re-traumatised. And not only that, with the plastic brain, neuroplasticity, it's not at all out of the question that that process of retelling the same story about yourself actually makes you believe it, becomes real.
So, Jeff, how important do you think that something like neutral evaluation is in bringing together people on this issue?
Neutral evaluation is a method of making an assessment of the validity of a claim very early on. At the moment, like all of our legal systems, it's an adversarial system. I come with my evidence, you come with your evidence, and we argue it out in either between us or in some tribunal or some court. Neutral evaluation describes a system where, at the very beginning, a person with a potential insurance claim visits and is assessed by somebody who's not on either side, who is a genuine expert, is accepted as independent and objective. They make their decision, and that's that. It's binding on both the parties. Mm-hmm. And this is a classic example where that sort of approach could produce far better outcomes for everybody, including the people making the claims. You imagine if you've got an anxiety disorder, the idea of going to an examination by an insurance company doctor probably going to make the disorder a lot worse.
Yeah, I understand. So what about the relevance or importance of a workplace with regards to mental health and insurance? How important is that?
Firstly, most of us spend a third of our lives at work, so that makes it relevant to almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
The context of the insurance we're talking about, superannuation is about money saved while working for support in retirement. And of course, the insurance offered through superannuation is mostly to make that cut in before you retire, if you have to retire early because of your illness. So it directly arises out of the workplace. The definition is unable and likely to never be able to work in a suitable job, workplace. You look at workers' compensation and virtually by definition, the claims arise from things that happened in a workplace. It can be bullying, it can be PTSD, it could be stress from overwork. So workplace is not only critical to prevention, but it's in some ways the cause of the situation and can be involved in the solution as well.
So we as actuaries love data and information.
We do.
We do. So there's quite a lack of information out there, isn't there? Or else suitable information that can be used for this purpose.
Suitable information. In the research that was done as part of preparing the Green Paper, there is an enormous amount of research and knowledge and increasingly data about mental health in the community and how it influences people's lives. But for the insurance applications, we need to have good data that actually was related to the insurance products. And I won't say there's none, that's quite unfair, but there is a real shortage of useful data for insurance applications, and there's a lot of work being done on that, and it's one of the things I imagine we'll come back and talk about later.
As we said, this is such a difficult problem. The nuances are so important. There isn't one fix for everything, is there? And that's, I guess, why it makes this issue so difficult to deal with.
And what the actuaries have tried to do with the Green Paper is to scope all of the relevant insurance sectors, which in turn is only a small but important part of the mental health scene, and try to draw together some of the common threads and draw out some of the differences so that developments can learn from each other and inform each other, but still be specific to the circumstances of that individual product group and customer group.
There are a range of initiatives underway already in the insurance sector that addresses some of these challenges, and we'll be discussing these in detail in the next episode. But Jeff, can you give us a brief hint at where some of these improvements may lie?
The community, including the insurance industry, is very, very aware of the difficulties that have been present and are trying to do things, but mostly on a pretty individualised and isolated basis. I can give you one little example. The Financial Services Council, which is an industry body of life insurance companies, has issued a standard requiring their member companies to give awareness training to their staff relating to mental health. Very small initiative on its own, may not solve a great deal, but it's an example of what's being done. I think that the genesis of the Green Paper from the Actuaries Institute is this broadly held feeling that we can all do better. Mm-hmm. So trying to stimulate more of the kind of constructive improvements that are possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll look forward to more of that collaboration, I think, going forward. And certainly the Actuaries Institute is keen to work with others to help address some of these challenges. You're listening to your Peace of Mind podcast for the Actuaries Institute Australia. That's about all we have time for in this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next time and we'll be drilling into more detail on the products that cover mental health and how improvements can be made. I'm Elaine Grace. Bye for now.